I made one really big mistake opening this business. And the reason I even opened a business here was because I found a really big problem in Paraguay that I cared about, that I was the problem owner. And it frustrated me so much that I decided to solve it. And I've always been the type of person, for some reason, that whenever somebody is doing something and it just bothers me how they do it, and it really bothers me, and I think I can do it better, sometimes I just do it. I don't know why. This happened to me in high school when I ran for class treasurer. I never ever wanted to be class treasurer. I never cared about applying for colleges and getting these things on your resume. The only reason I did that was because I hated the speeches of some of my classmates because I thought they were just such BS. The one thing I hated in particular, I remember, was when anybody started their speech saying, as some of you may already know, my name is so and so. And I just thought, like, why would you? First of all, we know your name. Second of all, why are you telling us your name? Like, what? That just bothered me so much. I think I just wanted to make a whole speech that just didn't start with that. When I encounter something that I really frustrates me for whatever reason, I sometimes just decide to do it myself. What happened in Paraguay was that I was frustrated by the Spanish schools that I attended here. I attended 3 Spanish schools here. And I was so frustrated. I really was. And not everybody's frustrated by them, okay? There's different schools for different people. Some people love them. But for me personally, they didn't fill my needs. And my need was a few things. One, I needed a really structured education by incredible teachers who are professional teachers who made their careers to be a teacher. That's what I needed at a minimum. But what I also really needed was structure in my life here in Paraguay and just something to do, something to go out and leave my house and meet an incredible group of people. When I left the US, I went to Peru first, and I became a full-time Spanish student at a school in Lima, Peru called Paraguay. And it was the best school I've ever been to in my life. It really was. It was so amazing. For 4 hours a day, I went, I studied, I did homework, and being a student became my identity, a Spanish student. Okay, my high school teachers never would have believed that, ever. And if they found out that I opened a Spanish school myself, they might start laughing. Okay, that was my worst subject. I'm an engineer. Okay, I love science, physics. I don't love math, but I do it. I love engineering. I love building things. Spanish I hated because I couldn't cheat with logic. You actually have to study. And I let my high school teachers know that. But in Peru, it was amazing. It was the best time of my life, and that I found that great school, and I couldn't find it here in Paraguay. And like I said, when I got frustrated, I said, that's it. I'm going to open my own school. And what really made me commit what helped me commit was the fact of how many foreigners were coming to Paraguay. And it seems like it's going like this. I thought it was a good opportunity. One of my mentors, Vince DeFelice from the University of Delaware, he always said, if you're going to start a business, you should go out and explore the market and find a problem. And wouldn't it be great if that problem was in a growing market? And look what I found. I found a problem in a growing market. I thought the problem was that I couldn't find a Spanish school that I liked in Paraguay. But the real problem was that expats, such as myself, struggle to feel at home in Paraguay. Okay, why is it that 80 or 90% of expats who come here and get their residency papers to get that tax thing, why do they leave very soon? Okay, don't want to be rude and say I hated Paraguay. They don't want to be rude and say that. But look at their actions. So many people come here, get the documents, and leave. And I say it's because they didn't feel at home in Paraguay. And a great way to feel at home is to have a structure, social routine, and really just to go to school. Whether it's temporary, maybe it's only a few months, even a few weeks, that gives you something to do. So that's what I set out. My mission was to solve the problem of expats not feeling at home in Paraguay. And I knew that was a valuable problem. because I knew how much I would pay to personally solve that problem for myself. At the school in Peru, they were charging me up to $800 a month, and they were undercharging me. I would have paid more. So here I was like, please, like, where can I go and pay a great amount of money to get this incredible educational and social experience? It didn't exist. So I said, let's do it. And here's where I made my mistake. I asked ChatGPT. I said, all right, how do you open a business? You need it told me you need to legally own a business, which is the common, instead of an LLC, you might use an EAS and EAS if you pronounce it in Spanish, and un EAS. I was like, all right, I need an EAS. That's like the business entity I need to run a business here. But before you can own an EAS, ChatGPT told me that you need to have a cedula, which is a government ID here. Like in the US, it's like a social security number, kind of, but it's okay to share publicly. But before you need that, you need your residency. So believe it or not, I was one of the few people who came to Paraguay without any intention of residency. But next thing you know, I decided I was going to get it, so I could get my cedula, so I could own an EAS and start a business here. And I thought that's what I had to do. My mistake was not getting help. And thankfully, I figured that along the way when I finally realized there's a shortcut to owning a business in Paraguay as a foreigner. That shortcut is to have another person open the business for you. And that's legal. That's completely legal, okay? But it needs to be somebody who has a cedula can open the business for you. And I only found that out actually by asking around for friends for help. Some other international business people that I knew, I asked them, and they told me of something like this. So then I thought, all right, I'll ask every law firm in Paraguay to do this. Like, there's got to be somebody. And it was really hard to find somebody who could do that, who was willing to do that for me, to open a business under their name, but it could be my business. I could run everything just under their name until I get my papers. But eventually I found an agency, Paraguay Pathways was willing to do this for me. And this is not an advertisement for them, but they were actually the only ones that were willing to do that. And to be honest, all the other law firms didn't respond. Even some immigration agencies didn't respond. They were the only ones. But I say this was such a big mistake because if I was afraid to reach out to them because these agencies are not cheap, and I didn't want to get ripped off. I was afraid of wasting money. But man, if I would have asked them first thing, I could have opened that business in a week. The moment that you apply for your residency, you have the legal right to work here. You don't even have to get your residency approved. The second you apply, they give you a yellow paper, your residencia precariata, your precariat residency, something like that, and you're allowed to work. So imagine that. If I would have just asked them, if I would have reached out to the expert right away, man, I could have opened the business in August. Instead, I thought I had to wait months and months and months, and I only opened the business in February. And in business, like, you want to move quick, especially in a market changing and growing as fast as Paraguay. Now, in the end, it hasn't really mattered, but it was so painful for me when I went back home in the U.S., getting my papers together, visiting family. I was watching the market here, grow, and I was watching a few Spanish schools grow and pop up. It was so painful for me because I wasn't here. I thought I couldn't be here. But had I got help and just asked somebody right away, I could have opened that business immediately. Could have opened in somebody else's name, and I could have immediately had the legal right to work here for that business. That's why I opened a business in Paraguay, and the number one lesson I learned was to get help.